Should the Mets make a move externally to help this bullpen in the early goings of the 2025 season? We're talking about a particular name right here on the True Mets Talk podcast. All right, Mets fans, welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to the True Mets Talk podcast. It's your boy CP. The Mets are on a roll despite a series loss against the Diamondbacks at home, 22-11 during the time of this recording. But the bullpen has been banged up and they have been a little bit overutilized, which is exactly why we're talking about one name that David Stearns in this front office should definitely be considering at least reaching out to try to come in as a free agent and help this Mets bullpen out for the longevity of this 2025 season. Before we get into this video, please do smash those thumbs up buttons, subscribe to the channel for all of your 2025 New York Mets content needs, pregame and postgame streams, videos such as this one right here, polls, recaps, and a whole bunch more. I got you covered right here on the True Mets Talk podcast. And drop your comments and thoughts in the comment section down below in this video because I'm very curious to hear your thoughts and opinions, Mets fans. If you would want to see a move like this happen, do you think it's necessary? And do you think that it's going to happen? Please let me know because we're talking about a former Met. He has somehow doesn't have a job at this point. I know that a lot of Mets fans have been talking about him, especially in the recent days when the bullpen has looked a little bit fatigued in some of these games. And we are talking about David Robertson, D-Rob, former Met in the first half of the 2023 season when he was locking ball games down in the season where the Mets lost Edwin Diaz before the season even actually started. And he is a workhorse. And that's the thing that I like about this idea of bringing David Robertson back. And we'll talk about some of the numbers that he's posted, but he's a workhorse really in the entirety of his career thus far, but especially in the past two seasons, 65 and a third innings pitched in 2023 between the Mets and the Marlins, and 72 innings pitched last season for the Texas Rangers. He is a durable, reliable arm. And the best part of this potential signing is that you don't need him to be a closer. You don't need him in high leverage situations, even because you still have Ryan Stanek, Jose Buto, Reed Garrett, Edwin Diaz, and that responsibility should fall on those guys. But now we're talking about a bullpen that, let's face it, is a little bit overworked. Ryan Stanek has been struggling recently. I know that he has had a great comeback outing against the Cardinals in game one when the Mets won 9-3. But in the previous three outings, he looked like a different version of Ryan Stanek and not really the best one. And Jose Buto, you can say the same thing for. A couple of these guys in the bullpen are really laboring at this point, and it's only May 3rd at the time of this recording. David Robertson can come in here, be a workhorse, give you bulk innings if necessary, and be just a reliable and dependent arm for Carlos Mendoza. And you also couple this with the fact that AJ Minter is now probably going to be lost until September, best case scenario, per the recent reports. Danny Young, with Tommy John surgery being on the table for him, potentially losing him for the rest of the season. We've got Genesis Cabrera, Brandon Waddell, who was, a stud in his appearance against the Diamondbacks at home, could be an option in the bullpen as a lefty option. But if you look at David Robertson, outside of him being a workhorse and outside of him posting respectable numbers, you can see on the left-hand side of your screen, both in 2023 and in 2024 with a flat 3.00 ERA for the Texas Rangers. He also has great reverse splits. And this is something that we talked about with Zach on the postgame show a couple of days ago when we first introduced this idea. Go back and take a look at David Robertson's splits from the 2024 season, righties versus lefties. He actually fared much better versus lefties than righties, which goes against the classic righty versus lefty matchup situation. And so that is something where even though he's a righty, you can mitigate losing two lefties in your pen and Danny Young and AJ Minter by bringing in a righty that is really tough on opposing lefty bats, which is exactly what David Robertson is. And that isn't just an outlier because, again, the same thing can be said for the 2023 season, maybe not to the same extent against lefties, but they also still had a hard time seeing David Robertson and finding success off of David Robertson in that 2023 season collectively. David Robertson, I understand the age. I understand it completely. Mets fans are very reluctant to bring a guy that is approaching 40 years old, age 39 season last season, but you see what he was able to do in Texas, and I still think he has at least some miles left in that arm that can be utilized by the New York Mets at this point. So I think that it is a really good idea, especially given the outlook of the bullpen early on into this 2025 season. And outside of the actual numbers being respectable, which is a great talking point about David Robertson, the other talking point is his consistency, as you can tell with some of the numbers on the right-handed side of your screen. The walk percentage has remained consistent over the past 2 seasons. The strikeout percentage actually got a lot better last season in a Rangers uniform than it did in a Mets and Marlins uniform collectively there. He was striking out guys at a very high clip in a Mets uniform in the first half. But like I said, the numbers are pretty skewed because of the poor second half that he had. And I'll talk about the third line here, the KC batting average, which stands for knuckle curve batting average against from opposing hitters off of this particular pitch, which is his favorite pitch to throw for his put away secondary pitch. And we'll talk about some of the pitch usage here because it was interesting to see him utilize a lot more of the cutter and a lot less of the slider year to year. But again, going towards the consistency point, the hard hit percentage 37.4 compared to 37.8. I mean, consistency is all I see out of David Robertson. The Mets don't need anything extravagant from him at this point of his career. I don't think he would provide anything extravagant to begin with. And he's just going to come in here, do the job, whatever it takes. And we've seen this from him before. This is a guy that the Mets know, and that could also play a huge role into him coming back into this organization that he has already been a part of, which makes it that much easier. But yeah, the usage with the cutter was a lot greater to my surprise in the 2024 season. And the slider, he decided to utilize that a lot less. You see, he went from 19.9% with his slider in 2023 to only 6.7% with that slider in 2024. And again, the face value numbers, really, there wasn't much of a drop off. They were a tad bit better in terms of the ERA and the walks and hits per innings pitch, going from 1.19 to 1.11 year over year. But I'm kind of curious what clicked in his day-to-day activities and his game plan for him to utilize that slider a lot less. That's something that I would be curious wherever he lands up, because at this point, while I'm talking about this, I'm still trying to wrap my head around how he doesn't have a job in this league at this point. Is he asking for too much money being 40 years old? And that's something that is also going to play into whether the Mets actually go down this route and consider it, because we all know the Mets have a large payroll. The Steve Cohen tax is already in full effect. So if he's still asking for 11 to 12 million dollars, which is probably what he's worth still, given the numbers that he's posted over the past couple seasons, then I don't foresee that happening. But given that it is May 3rd and he does not have a job yet with any team, I'm assuming he still wants to pitch in the big leagues. I don't think he has any plans to retire, at least not to my knowledge. I can't imagine him still asking for 10 plus $1 million. You're looking at potentially a way for the Mets to go and approach him, unless he's talking to other teams and there's some sort of secret bidding war for David Robertson that we don't know about. I think the range of $3 to $4 million is perfectly adequate and could get the job done. Now, again, easier said than done, and we don't really know what's going on behind the scenes and why he doesn't have a job right now. But a guy of this caliber, a guy of the sample size and the workload that he's gone through in his career, he has the ability to be a really good reliever on a championship caliber team in the New York Mets. Especially with this bullpen looking the way it is, I think it's pretty self-explanatory. The injuries, the overusage, this guy's a workhorse. David Stearns, hit the phones, see what it would take to get David Robertson in these doors. Mets fans, please let me know what you think about all the points that I just made. Do you think it's feasible? And would you like to see David Robertson back? Because at this point, it seems like a no-brainer. If the money is feasible for Steve Cohen to spend a little bit extra money on mid-season, and if there's some sort of budget allocations to where they still have flexibility to make moves at the deadline, given the budget, make it happen. Mets fans, smash those thumbs up buttons. Let me know what you think. Subscribe to the channel. Hit the comment section down below. As always, Let's go Mets. I'll see you all in a future video. And hopefully David Robertson is able to get back onto the diamond, whether it's with the New York Mets or somebody else, but preferably back in orange and blue, baby. Let's go.